Hello, and welcome to Psyched for Sanity. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Brindle Doss. I'm a licensed psychologist specializing in forensic psychology, trauma treatment, assessment, and geriatric psychology.
And I'm Dr. Tara McKelvey Parker. I'm also a licensed clinical psychologist. I specialize in assessing and treating complex trauma and attachment wounds from childhood. And we are doing another child development episode.
Whoop, whoop.
And I have been thinking a lot about the ages 3 to 5 episode because that's where my daughter is.
Right.
And she is fully immersed in this pretend play piece that's so common in 3 to 5. And I think I'm happy we did the episode because some of the things that she says may otherwise have been concerning to
Problematic.
And so the other night she told me when she woke up from sleep after nighttime or whatever, that 2 sharks came into her room.
Oh.
And they had a tea party.
Oh, well, that's nice of them.
And they played dress up and they helped her sleep. And I was
Whatever helps them sleep.
Right. Well, it's so interesting because she's actually terrified of sharks, which is also very common, 4-year-old fear. And so she's sort of, I think, working through something in her brain about sharks, right? There are these things she's scared of that show up and she plays with them and they help her sleep. And it's kind of like she's working through this fear of sharks or something,
well,
but through
cool.
this, pretend. And she's been obsessed with Buzz Lightyear too, superheroes.
Of all the ones though, Buzz.
I know. Well, first she really liked Jessie.
Right. That's more okay.
And she wore her Encanto dress with her pink glittery cowgirl boots to school for
Classic.
3 days. And then she decided she wanted to be Buzz Lightyear, who she calls Buzz Light. And apparently
that sounds concerningly similar to a certain beer product, which we're not going to name because we're not sponsored by them.
That's true.
That's
and
hilarious.
Buzz Light can turn into different things. I think she's fused Maui with Buzz Lightyear. You know, Maui from Moana, he can turn into things. And she also likes Moana. So it's just been really cute, with all the pretend stuff.
Yeah. My pretend play at my house is
a little different.
It's a little different. And also out of left field because we go to church occasionally. We're not, we don't go every weekend. But my children will be heard upstairs whispering to each other like they're in the scene of a murder mystery or a British detective show because they are looking
Well, this
for
is
clues.
actually just really, though, makes a lot of sense for you.
But does it, though?
Yes. I think yes.
They're looking for clues from Jesus. And that is weird. Because we talk about our faith and things like that, but also it's really it's a weird mishmash. And I'm kind of
yeah, I guess, but the whole British drama clue, Sherlock, I think I've actually said that you look like Sherlock Holmes on this show before.
I take that as a compliment.
It actually really fits. So I think that's adorable.
I would love if I got permission to wear hats on the show. I'm not going to get permission to wear hats, but I would love.
Oh my gosh.
Talk to HR about that.
Yeah, talk to HR. Yeah.
So we're in the earlier stages of development with our kiddos, but we're talking about a stage which we both are dreading. I feel like I dread every stage.
I don't know if I'm dreading. I don't know that I'm dreading, but I am just endlessly sort of surprised / not surprised by how emotional kids are supposed to be and how challenging things are supposed to be. So I think this stage is going to come with some of its own challenges.
So we're talking about 10 to 12.
10 to 12, yeah.
So what are some of the big shifts that happen? So it's pre-adolescence. And things are changing rapidly in the brain and body during this time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, puberty often begins around this time.
Sometimes even at 9 for some girls, depending on different factors genetically and otherwise.
Definitely. The prefrontal cortex is maturing a lot at this time.
Right.
So with that comes a lot of skill development. And also there is sort of this significant brain pruning that happens around this time. So lots of changes. We're still, 6 to 9 was inferiority versus industry. Right. Am I capable? Can I do this?
Right.
So we're still in that developmental period technically till around 12 is when we start getting into identity versus role confusion.
Yes.
Which is, who am I?
Who am I? What do people think of me?
Right. So these, when we talk about these developmental periods, again, we're talking about these key, like core developmental tasks that are needing to be met. And so we're kind of finishing up again this industry versus inferiority. So we're still developing skills like friendship skills.
Yes.
Right. We're still sort of like seeing more autonomy and independence emerging.
A lot more kind of demands for it too, like a yearning for it, really.
Definitely. And it being like necessary because where school is getting more challenging, hobbies and, things like that. So we're still seeing, when you listen to the 6 to 9 episode, many of the same things are still occurring in this developmental phase, but we should be advanced in a lot of these skills, more advanced, right, than we were 6 to 9.
The way I would think about it is, I love a metaphor.
You do love a metaphor.
It's like the cake, the recipe has been mixed together, and the cake has been baked, and now we're just putting on the icing.
Well, that's a good one. Did you just come up with that like in the moment?
Dude, 100%.
You just come up with these like in the moment when you're doing therapy too, don't you?
Yeah.
You're just like,
I'm really good. Please don't.
You are pretty good.
Please don't soundbite that. That's not how I feel internally. I know, but it is the finishing touches is what made me think of it.
Yeah.
Inferiority, inferiority.
Inferiority. It's a hard one. Inferiority versus industry. Yes.
Industry. Yes, and it's an important time to give them more control over their experience. I think more 6 to 9 is we're still giving them the building blocks.
Well, and parents are still really managers. They're still way more in charge of things, right? They should be, in terms of hierarchical structure, parents are really still, kind of managing and controlling more of what kids are doing. And 10 to 12, we start wanting, we saw this a little with 6 to 9, parents sort of needing to become more coaches, like kind of help them think through things and build skills. But now this is like really necessary.
Highly necessary. This is a really pivotal period for development of, can I handle things? Can I figure things out?
Right. So
like you said, am I capable?
Yeah, exactly. And so parents, are needing to really shift into asking more questions, like really putting responsibility back on their kiddo to figure out how to solve problems independently.
Which develops critical thinking skills.
Critical thinking skills, exactly. They're really getting to a point where they can really see multiple viewpoints and conflict and things, which is really cool. But they still need, some coaching around that. What do you think so-and-so is feeling? Why do you think so-and-so did that? Like what, what could you have done? That kind of stuff.
Cause and effect.
Yeah.
Like understanding that more connectedly than they do at 6, 8, 9, I think.
Yeah, so in terms of cognitive development, we certainly have a lot more of this kind of logical thinking. Yes, cause and effect.
Yeah, and in that same realm, they're much better at planning, at organization, and, organizing their own homework to a degree. Now, this doesn't mean, I don't think we want to give the assumption that they're, like, great and done with this. It's more like building a pyramid, too, where you're, like, layering up and we're getting higher up the pyramid. And they're able to do much
skill
more.
Development, yeah.
Much more.
So, importantly, Dr. Doss, she's talking about executive function, and executive function is controlled by the prefrontal cortex in the brain. And so at this point in time, like we mentioned at the beginning, the prefrontal cortex is really developing, but it doesn't finish developing until 20s.
Mid to late 20s, guys. And research shows it's later for men than women. Average for men is 25 to 27. Women, I think it's 23 to 25. And this is an average, which means there's a range.
Right. So when we talk about the things that the prefrontal cortex controls, like executive function, so that is attention, planning, organization,
switching
attention, emotion regulation is technically in this category and controlled by the prefrontal cortex. Inhibition, decision making.
Yes.
All of these things, kids at 10 to 12 are better at, but they are still very much developing these skills, as Dr. Doss says. We don't see like really a finishing till 20s.
Right.
So they, kids still really need a lot of help with structure and routine and developing skills to plan and organize and regulate their emotions and things like that. We're still really
I want to make sure we also talk about in this realm, like the synaptic pruning thing, because I think it's so cool.
Yeah, I think and kind of confusing.
Well, it's confusing, but this age, 10 to 12, is I've heard it's like a brain bridge to the next thing when there's tons of like neural development.
Yeah, it's actually a really important period, 10 to 12, for this reason. So, there's it's like a significant brain reorganization. So, connections in your brain, synaptic kind of connections in your brain that are not used very often,
right,
sort of go on the back burner. The brain's not really interested in investing a lot of energy into neural connections that are not used
or reinforced.
So, if a kid, has historically played the piano, for instance, and they kind of stop practicing during this age period, it's just going to be a lot harder. It's not like they'll never be able to learn the piano or get back on, but it's going to be rusty and it's going to be harder. It's like a forest path. If one's traversed often, it's smooth and it's broad and it's easy.
Look at you with a metaphor out of nowhere.
Right?
Look at you.
I learned from the best.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And if it's not, right, it's overgrown. So it just becomes harder. So at this period, practice is really important. Right. Whatever is being reinforced is going to strengthen in the brain, and the skills are going to become even more efficient.
Right.
And the opposite will happen if not.
Sure, absolutely. And I think that's a great way to kind of look at it. What, the forest path that's walked and traversed, like you said, more often is going to have more clear, more direct, more easy,
Yes. This is why it's so important that parents are like acting like coaches and like really kind of reinforcing skill development and, with executive functioning, having like, just practicing this stuff, right? Yeah. Just practicing it.
Sure. What other parts of this area I think are different? I think I was surprised by this in terms of the emotion aspect.
Oh, yeah.
This is a really interesting period where kids are always kind of watching how we react and respond. But it didn't really, I was surprised to learn in our research that this is a really big time when they are watching how we emotionally respond to everything.
Your face.
Well, it's true. I was like, oh, I've got 5 years. Then I'm.
Yeah, this is early. Yes, it's like, okay, we got to like get our stuff together because they're really watching at this period. They're like really aware of their surroundings.
They're much more aware of others than just themselves.
Right. It's because of the multiple viewpoints, because of the cognitive development. They are not just self-focused. We're starting to become other-focused too in a much more significant way.
Yes.
So, yes, in terms of emotion regulation at this period of time, the way that they're learning how to cope with their emotions and express their emotions really comes from how you're doing it, what they're seeing you do.
Yeah.
So we want, to encourage parents to practice healthy coping skills, healthy emotion regulation skills as best as possible. This is also with emotions around this time. It's another period where emotions are really intense.
Yes. Much more intense than people.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hear about the pre-adolescent, adolescent hormones. There definitely is hormonal change during this time, but there's also brain changes that make a child much more emotional. Their emotional centers and their reward centers in their brain are really active during this time.
Right.
And it's much more active than what the prefrontal cortex can handle. So it's like having a really strong accelerator without the brakes.
Yeah.
So
that's a good way to look at it.
Even though they can think logically and they can think about consequences,
right,
and they know if they, do that thing, they may get in trouble. They get the reward system is so active that they're like, meh, I don't care. I'm going to do that thing that I know I don't need to do, even if I'm going to get in trouble. So what struck me was just, because I think kids this age can start fooling parents into believing that they don't quite need as many boundaries or as much structure.
Right. Well, we're also telling parents, I think, to give them more independence.
And this is where
it's tricky.
It gets really hard. I think, yes, there's that push-pull power struggle. Right. We're sort of getting there again because it's another period where kids are, they're pushing for autonomy and responsibility and you want to give it to them, but they still need you to say, hey, honey, you have a test tomorrow. And we're not going to play video games right now. We're going to study. And then once we get done, you can play video games. They need you to be able to impose the structure and set the boundaries for them still.
And I think that imposing those structures and boundaries is important. And I really think this is a huge period. I think it even starts maybe a smidge before, maybe like 8, 9, but definitely 10 to 12. I really think this is a really great developmental period specifically for kids to learn how to fail.
Yeah.
I think, and I preach this to the parents I work with of kids this age, or even kids that are older, to be honest with you. So much can be learned by failing, because it's called learning and not knowing. And if we don't experience some level of failure, I'm not saying go out and make your kids fail. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is don't prevent or protect from logical consequences of their choices, as long as they're within safe means.
Do you want to explain what a logical consequence is?
A logical consequence is, for example, if I don't go to bed early the night before we podcast, and I don't set an alarm, and I don't, make sure everything I need is prearranged, a consequence may be that I'm late, that I miss that I don't have an alarm, and then I'm not prepared and ready, and that we're late to start the podcast. That didn't happen today, but
it could have.
Consequences is the reasonable response to a behavioral choice. There can be some good logical consequences.
Right. So I'm like thinking of, going back to the example I gave about the homework. Right. Maybe the kid sort of hastily prepares for the exam and, studies because they are told to, because they want to get to that video game.
And they just review it real quick.
And they maybe don't do as well on that test as they wanted to, or their parents want, or as good as they could have, done. Like if they were really, doing what they needed to do. And so logical consequence is they don't do well.
Right.
And so next time, maybe there's a different study plan or they have to live with the consequences of their grade.
And it's so hard to watch our kids suffer or to have challenging experiences in life. But I would much rather my children experience the consequences of their choices when they're younger, under the age of 18.
Right, before they are
when they're
out on their own and supposed to be
losing a job, or when they're, getting behind on some kind of major payment for a car or something else, and then experiencing those consequences.
Yeah, much bigger, much more consequential.
To where you can't always, we cannot prevent life from happening to our children. So how do we help them deal with the life that they're going to live?
Yeah, exactly. So, during this time, independence and responsibility, is important, but we want to... we talk about expectations. We talked about expectations in our last episode. We want to have realistic expectations and allow mistakes and
absolutely
gradually give them more responsibility that's age appropriate with as much sort of coaching as needed.
Coaching, but not managing.
Exactly. Coaching, but not managing. So it's like if there's a mistake involved, what could you do differently next time, honey?
If you don't want to get a 70, what can you do?
That's a super big bummer.
Absolutely.
Like, what's important to you, sweetheart? Because this is when values start to emerge, when we start to really notice what's important to us.
What do I care about?
Right. And so, you could have a child who is not super into academic achievement, potentially. Right. And so you kind of really have to talk to them. What's important to you? Is school important? Is it not? I mean, it is. They have to go to school and they have to do their best. And, but like some kids
they don't
are not.
Have to do their best.
Well, you want them to do their best. We would like them to do their best. But that's when you start kind of figure, what is that for your child? And what is important to your child? And so then where do you meet them?
Yeah.
In terms of assistance to sort of, I think of like successive approximation, like where is your child and what do they need to just be challenged a smidge, right? Depending on what their good enough is and what they're interested in. So does that make sense?
It does. I think one thing we haven't talked about is the social experience in this area, which I think is huge because friendships come to mean like everything, it feels like, emotionally for these kids.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, definitely. And you're going to see it even more in adolescence where
it's a preview.
We're not really even, they're just like, peace out. They want to just spend all their time with their friends. But definitely, 6 to 9, that age period, we started to see more like interest and more, friends becoming more important. But now we're really continuing to see friendships being super important. And more based on emotional connection.
And not on common interests or
likes. Yeah. So 6 to 9, year old kids are going to be friends because they both like My Little Pony.
Or the color blue.
Or playing basketball. Yep. Or they live on the same street.
Yes.
Right? So this
proximity or interest.
It's also like super common when kiddos start like friendships, like childhood friendships start potentially maybe, breaking off because you're no longer just friends because you live on the same street. Now you're friends because you have an emotional connection.
Yes, and that emotion is very powerful.
Right.
So if friendship ruptures or conflict, I feel like the world's going to end for these 10 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah, really big, really enormous, super, still, we talked about this with ages 6 to 9, but we just see it continuing. Just really sensitive to rejection, really wanting to fit in.
Massively.
And so I think, just hearkening back to why I wanted to do these episodes, I think if, my child was having these kinds of concerns, I might be a little worried, right? I might be,
Are they being too dramatic? Are they too emotional or something like that?
Yeah, or like, is something wrong, And so I think it's just really, it's been very helpful to do these. And it's important to remember that, like, suffering is part of the human condition.
Oh my goodness. There's your clip.
There's my existential crisis of the morning.
So early.
Just like, it just feels like suffering is inevitable, right? Our kids they're just going, we want to fit in, and they're just going to have social struggles, and it's all super normal. And so that's when we want to not panic.
Right.
And really coach them into figuring out, who is important to them. What do they want to do? How are they feeling? How do you think their friend was feeling? What do you think you could do differently? How, what do you think so-and-so needs to feel better? What do you need to feel better around conflict resolution?
And also even just accepting if friendships change.
And accepting really that friendships change, yes.
Or if someone's being mean, it might be about them and not necessarily about you. And that's...
Exactly.
That is so important, not to rescue, diminish, or avoid the emotions there in that point.
Yes, or to, like me again, like catastrophize and think something's wrong and I must do something to solve this,
In fact, it's actually very
super typical and super normal. So I found that to be kind of reassuring as we were talking through this.
Speaking about intense feelings, we talked about emotion a little bit.
Yeah.
What other things about emotion are important during this age?
So emotions they're big. Again, we had a little bit of a lull period in 6 to 9. And smidge. So they're big.
Massive.
And they become much more complex.
Yes.
So we see more complex emotional experiences like pride,
jealousy,
shame, embarrassment,
even rage.
Yeah. So it just becomes more complex, and kids can talk about their feelings much more.
Yeah.
And by this point, because the prefrontal cortex is emerging, we do have more neurological capacity to manage or regulate emotion. But they still really need help with modeling, like you were talking about earlier, like making sure that you're trying your best to model healthy coping skills around your emotions. And, coaching and practicing, here when we talked about that brain pruning, practicing these coping skills becomes even more important.
Reinforce the past you want.
Because we want to reinforce the past that we want. Yep. So that's what I think about in terms of emotion regulation for this age.
Tied to emotion is just, I think, which is kind of tied also to cognition, interestingly enough, is like anxieties and fears follow that same line of thinking where it goes from really concrete.
Right.
To abstract fears and worries and anxieties.
Yes. So like my daughter, she's scared of sharks and snakes and monsters. This is very concrete.
Yes.
But, by the time they get to 10 to 12, they're worried about fitting in. They're worried about belonging.
Right.
They're worried about world events.
World hunger.
Or they have existential questions like what's the human condition? I don't know.
Like
more so.
Like more connective to since their worldview is now multi-view, they can consider their perspective and others. They're realizing, oh my gosh, my parents are going to die someday. They might have lost a grandparent potentially. Who knows? And so there's a lot more like other awareness, and with that other awareness comes other anxiety, I would say. Right.
And so again, like the worry and anxiety is just part of the human condition. That's what I'm realizing. And
we're turning this into an existential episode. And I don't think that was part of the notes.
And our kids, they apparently it's very normal and common to be worried. Although you could, I guess, be extra too. We want to think about when to get support, right? If it's like, always ask yourself, is it pervasive? Meaning, are we seeing anxiety in multiple settings? Like, is it sort of impacting functioning again? Like, is it getting in the way of sleep? Is it getting in the way of eating? Is it getting in the way of concentrating? Like, are we seeing like emotional dysregulation past the point of actually being able to calm down for long periods of time.
Absolutely.
So with anything in these episodes, you want to be asking those kinds of questions, to kind of ascertain where your kiddos falls on
where they fall and what they need.
Yeah, what they need.
Is this what they're supposed to be battling? Or is it more along the lines of they just need to be able my support to go through it?
Right. You're right. Or do we need like more support from other places or people or, therapists and executive functioning coaches, for instance, I think about.
Sure. With all these different areas, in terms of kind of wrapping up this time period that we're talking about, I think we've covered most of them.
Yeah, I think so. Those are the highlights. I think we're really going to see some more significant changes at our next developmental period. So we'll cover, identity versus role confusion, which is starting right around 12-ish. Like the 12 age is sort of a transition between these two developmental periods.
Yes, so that's the brain bridge in early two.
Yeah. So we're kind of like, getting into identity versus role confusion sometime around 12, and we'll cover that more thoroughly next time.
Yeah, we'll cover that in our next childhood episode. But I think, what are you taking away from this a period that awaits both of us in parenthood?
Well, as I've said, human suffering is just the human condition. So I've certainly, this is like literally after doing 3 of these child development episodes, and every single one of them talking about how our kids are just going to be insecure and anxious, and like struggle, and like it's all normal, and I'm like, okay, so that it really helps me feel less anxious.
I see,
because then I'm like, okay, all right, girl, like, yeah, you're sad, I get it, this sucks, and I don't need to be freaked out about this meaning something about my child, which is, again, it's incredibly reassuring to talk about. I
think it's a good reminder to really make sure and manage our own emotion. And what I'm taking away is, like, we really need to manage our emotions and let them experience this process without us getting in the way. Maybe we have a hard time dealing with failure, or we have a hard time with an emotional experience or a social experience. As best we can, I guess, is a good reminder to, like, stay out of their developmental path.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely believe in, things being child-led to a degree, right? Yes. We want them to fail. We want them to lead when they can. We want them to make mistakes. We want them to just sort of develop their own little personalities in their own little way. But, providing the
what I mean,
guidance
I think
and
is, like, if we continue to manage and not let coaching happen.
Oh, yeah.
If we are so uncomfortable in watching their failure that we cannot let them, then that's what I mean by we need to get out of the way. We need to manage our challenges emotionally or socially or what have you around these topics in order to allow their development to occur.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
that's what I'm kind of taking away.
Okay, cool.
And as with all of them, I'm not looking forward to this period.
Yeah, you're dreading it. I'm feeling.
You're existential and I'm full of dread,
I'm feeling reassured right now. Actually,
that's fine.
That's so not typical for us either.
Normally, I'm high energy and you're the doom and gloom.
Yeah, I'm the negative Nancy over here.
We are Nancy, but we are very much a yin and yang on most things, so that kind of fits.
It does fit. Yeah, we just flipped.
Yep, we do that. Let us know in the comments what developmental period was most difficult for you, if you're past most of these, or what period you're anxious about.
If you have any questions, we're
please let us know. This podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only, and is not a substitute for therapy, diagnosis, or any kind of professional mental health treatment. We hope that we can share with you our experience authentically and genuinely, and we hope that occasionally we'll make you laugh. Maybe you can relate to our quest and how we're psyched for sanity. The content we share is our personal opinions and insights. They are not clinical insights to anyone, and they don't represent or reflect any entity that we work and or have worked for in the past. But if listening to this podcast has made you think, we really encourage you to seek out a mental health professional in your area.